pues es importante, si te parece, hablamos de lo que ha comentado el Rian en esa reunión del El-Erian, eso es, en esa reunión del FMI. En un panel, de hecho, donde se discutía cómo deberían los bancos centrales luchar contra la alta inflación. Era un panel que daban varios miembros importantes, entre ellos también desde el Banco de Inglaterra, desde el Banco de Corea, y Mohamed El-Erian también ha hablado. Y lo que ha dicho es que sobre todo le preocupa la autonomía de los bancos centrales. Es algo que está en juego, dice él, y que en los próximos años se va a notar como poco a poco los bancos centrales van perdiendo el control y esa autonomía, debido también a los errores que han cometido en el pasado. Lo primero, su primera intervención hace referencia hacia la nueva realidad, y es que las cosas han cambiado. Esto no significa que estemos por un proceso en el que la Fed ha subido tipos y próximamente vaya a bajarlos. Si los baja, dice El-Erian, sería por una razón bastante preocupante, sino que a nivel estructural las cosas han cambiado para las próximas décadas, y es que nos adentramos en un entorno completamente diferente. Esto es lo que ha dicho al respecto.
At the IMF, it feels like coming home. And Geeta, thank you for inviting me. They raise rates too fast because it took them so long to raise rates. So when you are late, and in this case very late, you have no choice but to try and catch up. And what we are discovering is that while the economy is relatively resilient to higher rates, and in fact has surprised on the upside, the financial system is a different story. The financial system has been conditioned by many, many years of ultra-loose monetary policies. You have business models that will not make sense if rates have to be high for long. And we are yet to see the deleveraging that is still on the cards. So people talk about commercial real estate. A lot of projects, when they need to be refinanced, no longer make sense. And that's going to be questioned, where does that loss end up? We've seen the hold to maturity securities that can cause a problem if you lose the confidence of your depositors. So I think the next challenge, as much as we talk about is there a recession, is there not a recession, which of course is very important, but the real challenge for policymaker is going to come from how does the financial system that was conditioned to live with ultra low interest rates and abundant liquidity, how does it adjust to a world of what I think, because I agree with Geeta, inflation will be sticky, what will be a world of higher rates.
Ya lo tienen, la inflación va a ser pegajosa, va a ser sticky, decía El-Erian, y que entonces el mundo va a tener que adaptarse a tipos de interés más altos. Por tanto, que la nueva realidad no es volver a los excesos de siempre, no es volver a unos bancos centrales que dan tipos de interés, donde dan financiación de forma gratuita a las empresas. No, la nueva realidad es algo completamente opuesto a lo que hemos vivido por lo menos en la última década, a todos esos excesos que han generado los bancos centrales, que también menciona, dice, uno de los errores fueron esos excesos, y por eso la Fed también actuó tarde, porque no se atrevía a parar con los excesos. Bueno, pues dice que hay que acostumbrarse a la nueva realidad y advierte una cosa, y es cómo cambiarían todos los balances. Ha dicho, si usted coge los balances, están estructurados de cualquier empresa, dentro del sistema financiero, están estructurados de forma que se han hecho con tipos prácticamente cercanos a cero o incluso negativos. Cuando tú cambias eso y alteras el balance y pones una nueva realidad, dice El-Erian, unos tipos más altos, te das cuenta del desapalancamiento que todavía tiene que haber en el sistema financiero para combatir esta nueva realidad. Y eso es lo que dice sobre la primera pregunta que le hacen, pero luego coordina con otra cosa. Y es que dice que la Fed se ha tenido que poner más al día y claro, el hacerlo tan rápido va a desencadenar lo siguiente. Vamos a verlo.
In the case of the US, it is very different from the UK and from the ECB. I think the US, had it started earlier, we would not have had to have such a concentrated increase in interest rates, and we would not be in the midst of this trilemma of trying to simultaneously lower inflation, minimize damage to growth, and maintain financial stability. Once you get to Europe, the story gets much more complicated. And you touched upon why it gets complicated. But I think in the US it's clear. And I just want to align myself with Olivier. I think in a perfect world, we wouldn't have a 2% inflation target for a world of deficient aggregate supply. And for the next few years, we are in a world of deficient aggregate supply. We have change in globalization that is fragmenting supply chains. We have companies themselves who have recognized that they didn't focus enough on resilience. So they themselves are building different supply chains. You hear the just in time also has to come with just in case. We have an energy transition. All these three things are inherently inflationary. And if we try to run economies to an arbitrary target of 2%, remember that's completely arbitrary, we will sacrifice a lot. Now I agree with Olivier, the key issue is how do you change your inflation target when you've been way above your inflation target for a while. And that's why central bankers don't want to talk about it, but the issue is not going to disappear. This is an issue that has to be confronted if you believe, like I do, that the characterization of the global economy has gone from deficient aggregate demand after the global financial crisis to now deficient aggregate.
Bueno, pues habla de ese cambio, ¿no? Ese cambio en una inflación estructural más alta, como ya les comentaba. Y la última intervención de El-Erian ha sido también importante porque pone el foco en la autonomía de los bancos centrales y que es operativa, es absolutamente crítica para ellos mantenerla. Esto es lo que ha dicho.
Me up at night, and the reason why I have been so publicly critical of the Fed is that if we're not careful, this episode of inflation and the way inflation is hitting particular segments of the populations hard is going to end up putting in play something that none of us want to put in play, and this organization knows better than anywhere else, which is the importance of the political autonomy of central banks. I am terrified that if central banks don't own their mistakes, if central banks don't learn from their mistakes and are public about this process, people are going to say you're not accountable enough, and I'm not sure you should have the amount of political autonomy that you do. And operational autonomy is absolutely critical to a central bank. Already, I mean, we talk a lot about credibility and forward guidance. What is the marketplace telling us today? The marketplace itself is doubting the Fed. So the Fed has been very consistent over the last few months that it will keep rates high for all of this year. An absolutely consistent picture. The market says, no, you're not. You're going to start cutting in the second half. And by the end of the year, interest rates will be a full percentage points below what you tell us they're going to be. I've never seen that divergence between forward guidance and what the market is pricing. And I worry that this inability to be held accountable is going to lead first to markets starting to go on their own way, and then, of course, at the end of the day, the Fed can force an adjustment, but it becomes more costly if the market hasn't done some of the heavy lifting. And secondly, it will put the political autonomy of central banks in play, which is something that would be very harmful for economic.
Pues ahí lo ven, decía El-Erian que todo esto lo que está haciendo es que los bancos centrales poco a poco pongan en juego su autonomía, que dijeron que iban a mantener los tipos de interés altos durante todo 2023, si ahora cambiasen de opinión. Lo primero, el mercado de hecho cree ya que van a cambiar de opinión, los swaps de la Fed ya están mostrando que esperan que caigan los tipos de interés durante todo 2023. Dice El-Erian que claro, que todo esto ya está mostrando que los bancos centrales cada vez son menos creíbles en su toma de decisiones y que eso va a ser la cosa que más le preocupa para los próximos años. José.